So rather than using a brand new health manager kind of script, which we could create something else to control our health, but we're already using a level manager to kind of control what's going on in our world in general. So we're going to make changes to that to keep track of whether our player should die or not. Especially because we're already using a function within our level manager to control when we respawn in the game. So obviously, if we open this up here, just give this a second. Obviously, we're going to need to make a reference to these 3 heart objects so that we know as the player's health goes down, we're going to need to make these decrease in value. So in our level manager here, we already have our Unity Engine.ui included because we needed to access the text elements. So because we're accessing an image, we'll be using the same stuff here. But luckily we've already started including that. So like I said, we're going to need to make a reference to these 3 hearts here. Let's just switch back to the scene view just to keep things nice and simple. So that's our heart 1, heart 2, heart 3. And we know that they're images. If we click on one of them, we know that they're images as part of the UI. And again, images are a specific UI object, so that's why we need to be using our Unity Engine.ui up here. Just in case you're making your own stuff in the future and you're not using the text stuff, you're just kind of jumping straight to this. So we'll say public image, and we're going to say this one is just heart 1. And then we're also going to need to know about public image heart 2, and finally public image heart 3. Oh no, we don't want a space, just heart 3, and then our semicolon there like that. Okay, so if these heart images are going to change as our player's health goes up and down, we're obviously going to need to be able to access the sprites that represent these hearts. So we'll go back to our art folder here, and if we scroll back down to, there we go, we have our 3 different sprites here. So if we want to be able to, for example, when our player gets a first hit, we want to knock this heart down so that's half a heart, and then when he gets another hit, we want to knock it down so we get an empty heart, like that. So if we want to do that, we need to be able to reference these sprites in here. So much like we did when we used our checkpoint script, we added the ability to have for our script to store 2 different sprites. So we need to do the same thing here and make our script store these 3 different sprites. So we can just say here, public sprite, we can have a heart full sprite. We'll also have a public sprite heart half, and we'll have a public sprite heart empty, like that. Okay, so now that we've got these 6 things here, we've 3 and 3, we know that if we're using 3 hearts like this, we're basically saying that our player can have up to 6 health. And although we can have all these images up here, we needed a way of actually keeping track of how much health our player has as a number value, rather than just as like a bunch of objects up here. So we're going to need a couple of different number values that we can use. We're going to want a public int max health. So this will be how much health our player can start off the game with. And we know that we're going to be setting that to be 6. But at any time you could want to add another couple of hearts here and put in some more slots or whatever. So we want our max health to be kind of flexible. And we also want a public int of, say, we'll call it health count. So this will be keeping track of how much health we currently have within the game. So if we're going to just save this and go back into Unity and kind of line all this stuff up so that we're able to use it within our game. So it's finished compiling there. We'll go to our level manager, and we have all these empty slots that we need to fill. So heart 1, 2, and 3, we have these guys here. So let's put these into place here. So heart 1, 2. Oh, I put the 2 in the wrong place there. So there we go. Heart 1, 2, and 3 all filled in. We want our heart full sprite, our heart half sprite, and our heart empty sprite. And like I said, our max health is going to be 6, because we can have, basically we have, if these are all empty, it's 0. If it's got a half of one here, it's 1. If it's got full, it's 2. If we've got another half of one here, it's 3, 4, 5, and 6. So our maximum health will only ever be 6. So we filled those things in here. We don't need to fill in our health count because we want that to be changing as the game goes on. And of course, when we first start the game, we do want our player to have if we go back to our level manager, we do want our player to have 6 starting out the game, but we don't want to set that here. We want our script to automatically fill that in for us. So in our start function, here we can say, okay, when we start the game, our health count should be equal to our max health, like that. Yeah, that's all we want to do there for that. Okay, so now that we have our basic hearts set up and we have them all connected up, we need to write some actual script to control what's going to happen in here. So at the moment, all we have in terms of these added little functions down here are, we have our respawn function, the respawn coroutine that we're using, and also this function to add coins. So as we know, when we wanted to start making some changes to do our coin system, we had to create this new function for other scripts to be able to call on it and add some coins. And in the exact same way, we currently have a hurt player script over here. And our hurt player script, at the moment, all it does is tell the level manager to respawn. But instead, what we'll want it to do is tell the level manager, actually, we want to just do some damage to the player right now, rather than just making him instantly respawn. So we're going to need an extra function down here to handle that. And basically, so all we need to do is just say, what do we call it? We'll just call it, I suppose, very simply, public void hurt player, like that. And we'll actually need, much like we had with our add coins up here, we want to take in a value for how much we want to hurt the player. So say a more powerful enemy, we might want to do more damage, or a more simple enemy, we might want to do just a tiny little bit of damage. So here we're going to say, much like we did for int coins to add, this time we're going to say int damage to take. Okay, so let's open and close the curly bracket here like this. And then basically all we're going to do here is, so we know we have our health count is controlling how much health we currently have. And we have a value here that we're taking in, which is our damage to take. So we just need to take that away from our current health count. So here we can just say health count, we could do it the long way, which would be health count equals health count minus damage to take, which would work perfectly fine. But much like we did with the coin count here, we can use the simplified method, where here we used coin count plus equals coin to add. Here we can just say health count minus equals damage to take, and that will just immediately take away however much damage we needed to take from the game. So we can just save that, and now we have a very basic little way of taking some damage to our player. Obviously, we're going to need to make a call now to this from our hurt player script. So if we switch over to our hurt player script over here, we're obviously need to go and set for anything that can do some damage to the player, we're going to need to actually decide how much damage can it do. So in here we're going to write a new public int, and we'll say damage to give, like that. Okay, so if we save that, and if we go down here, instead of now saying to the level manager, okay, as soon as the player touches anything dangerous, we want them to respawn, instead we're going to just comment that little bit out like that, and then down here we're going to type in, okay, the level manager dot hurt player, and then in the bracket again we get a little tooltip that pops up that says, okay, we need an int value, and we called it damage to take. So basically this is how much damage you want to do, and we created our new damage to give. So let's pop that in there, damage to give, close that bracket and hit semicolon. Okay, so we switch back to our level manager, and we know that as soon as our hurt player script happens now, we'll see it doing some damage here. So before we start going and adding code to control which hearts are being shown here, let's go back and see that this is actually working in the game. We'll just wait for that to compile. And now if we hit play here, oh no, actually we shouldn't have hit play because we need to actually set up how much damage things are doing. So if we scroll back in here, let's go over to our spinny saw guy here. If we scroll down now on our hurt player script, we have a value of damage to give. So let's just say that this guy is only going to do 1 damage for now. We probably wanted to do a lot more than that, but for now 1 is perfectly fine. So now if we hit play here, we're going to play the game, and we're going to have our level manager selected so that we can keep track of how much health count we have. And if we jump and not quite make it there, Oh, I made these platforms too far apart, didn't I? Let's just move these platforms in a little bit in the game here. Let's just go over to there like that, and we'll just tighten up these guys as well, because we're not going to be able to make those distance whenever we try to get to them. Okay, so we'll just try this one more time. And we'll walk over here. Need to have our level manager selected there. Okay, we walk into that, and we see our health count goes down to 5, and every time we walk into it, we get another little bit taken off until we go down to 0. But of course, at the moment, we don't have anything saying what should happen when you get to 0. So we'll go back into our level manager script, and if we go to the update loop, now in our update loop we want to add basically a check to see if our health count goes down to 0, or if it gets to be less than 0, we want to just respawn the player. So here we'll say if health count is less than or equal to 0, then what we want to do is just call the respawn script. And calling a script from within itself is actually much easier. We don't have to go like the level manager.respawn or anything like that. We can just type in respawn, and then our brackets, and then our semicolon. So now what will happen is, okay, as soon as our health gets down to 0, we'll call the respawn function here, and then it'll start running all this, and our player will be respawned. But at the moment, there's nothing here to tell us to set our health back to maximum. So before our player becomes active again, we want to set our health to be back up to full. So if we go here, we will say, just before our players kind of reset and respawn, we'll do it, actually put it just here. We will say, okay, at this point our health count should be equal to our max health. And that's all fine and good, but this is still causing a bit of an issue. So what is going to happen now is, because our health count is only being set to max health after we've waited for a second, what will happen is our health will get to 0, will respawn, and it'll start this little function. So in the space of one frame, it'll start this function going, but then on the next frame, our health will still be 0, and we'll be waiting for this piece to finish. So it'll just go, okay, our health is 0, so start respawning again, and we'll get caught in a kind of continuous loop of trying to respawn the player, and it'll kind of mess things up, and that won't be very good for us at all. We'll end up with a whole bunch of coroutines starting up, which will be no good. So we need a way for it to make sure that it doesn't try to respawn when we're already started. And the way we can do that is very simply by using a bool object, and we can or a bool variable, sorry. And basically we can just say, okay, at the moment we've already started respawning, so don't try and make us respawn again. And all we have to do is just create a new private bool that we will just call respawning, like that. And basically all we're saying, okay, this is what's going to be checked to make sure that we're not already respawning in the game. So as we covered before, a bool is just a variable that can be either true or false, and that's the only two states it can be. So basically within our update here, we want to say, okay, if our health count gets to be less than 0, and with 2 ampersands like that, and if our respawning bool, if we stick a little exclamation mark in front of that, oh no, I don't know why that, hold on, there we go. If I put a little exclamation mark there like that, what that means is, that means basically not true. So if we were to leave respawning in by itself, we would be saying if our health count is less than 0 and respawning is true. But if we put a little exclamation mark in front, what it means is if health count is less than or equal to 0 and respawning is not true. So that's what we want to be happening. So if our respawning is not true, then we can respawn, and at the same time we can say, okay, now respawning is equal to respawning is equal to true. So that means as we call that respawn code, we're saying, okay, now our respawn is true, so that means we won't be able to do this again. And then at the end of our respawn coroutine, just before our player comes back to life, but after we've already set our health count to be equal to maximum health, so then we know that our health count is back up to 6, and we won't get caught in this little loop again. So after that happens, right here we can just say, Okay, now respawning is back to being false again. So perfect. So we can save that, and now we'll go back in, and we should see if this time, once we let it compile down here, we should see that our player can get killed by walking into this spike and losing our health. So we go over here, keep an eye on the health count as it ticks down. We get down to 1 and then down to 0, and we get destroyed, and we get respawned back where we started. So that's perfect. So we've got our health kind of system all basically working for us, but we've already got our sprites in the world, and they're not having any changes. So now we're going to need to look at how we can just make a simple way to keep track of what our heart should look like at any given time. And we're going to do that by using switch statements within our level manager.